Students, and welcome to this beautiful Monday morning. Today we are going to begin a new chapter, The Three Questions. Three Questions is written by the Russian writer Leo Tolstoy. Now, Leo Tolstoy wrote many books. One among them is War and Peace, which went on to become very famous, and the other is, which is given out here, A Confession. I have, two lines have been printed from that particular book out over here. Now, Three Questions is taken from Leo Tolstoy's book, and it is in the form of a parable. A parable means a short story which has a strong message at the end of it. Now, every one of us has a lot of questions with regard to life. So here we have a story of a king who had three questions in his mind, and he feels that if he is able to answer these questions or find answers to these questions, life will be absolutely great. His country will become prosperous, no one will be unhappy, and he will become the best king. But many a times, class, when we have questions with regard to life, the answers are always within us. And the answers we usually find in the day-to-day experiences that we go through. And that is exactly the message in this chapter, The Three Questions. So let us start with the chapter, class. Once, a certain king had an idea. If he always knew the right time to begin everything, if he knew who were the right people to listen to and who to avoid, the most important thing to do, he would never fail in anything that he would undertake, and above all, if he always knew what was the most undertake. Since he was convinced that he was right in thinking this way, he had a proclamation made in his kingdom. He would give a great reward to anyone who would teach him what the right time was for every action, who the most necessary people were, and how he might know the most important thing to do. So, the first paragraph tells us that one day a king of a particular country came up with a marvelous idea. And what was the idea? The idea was he felt, let me know what is the right time to begin something. Right? He wanted to know that. Many of us, especially in India, we go to see, we find out go through an astrologer or something, and we say, no, tell me what is the right time to begin a business or to venture into something new. But over here, the king wanted to know what would be the right time. Also, he wanted to know who are the right people that he should take advice from. Right. And lastly, what is the most important thing that he should do? So these were the things he wanted to. And to find the answers, he set up a proclamation. Proclamation meaning he made an announcement in the entire kingdom. And he said, anyone who would answer these questions would get a very good reward. He would give him a great prize. Alright, so he did this proclamation and he waited who would come in the front to answer these questions. Okay, in the first paragraph, mark the first line. Once a certain king had an idea. Your grammar question is, divide the sentence into subject and predicate. Your answer will be, once a certain king, subject, had an idea, predicate. Don't forget, a predicate part of the sentence always begins from the verb. So had is your verb here. So had an idea will be your subject. Your predicate, and subject never has a verb. Please keep that in mind. Next line, you come to the word new. Give me the noun form, which I've done even before in the previous chapters. Your noun form is knowledge. Knowledge. Alright. Come a little lower down. You have the sentence out over there. He was convinced that he was right in thinking this way. Identify the clauses and state its kind. Now, when you have to identify the clause class, please remember, first thing is you pick out your conjunction. So, over here, my subordinating conjunction is that. And remember, subordinate clause always begins from the conjunction. So, he was convinced is your main clause. That he was right in thinking this way is your subordinate noun clause. Right? Because he was convinced. What was he convinced about? I am getting an answer to that question, what? Therefore, your clause is a subordinate noun clause. Okay. Next is you have over there the last word in the last line, important. Give me the noun form. Answer will be importance. Okay, let's continue. Many learned people came to the court, but they all gave different answers. In reply to the first question, some said that to know the right time for every action, one must draw up in advance a table of days, months, and years, and must live strictly according to it. Now, there were many people who came to the king's court because remember, he had said he would handsomely reward. So, naturally, many people flocked to his court. And for the first question, his first question was, what is the right time to begin something? So, some people all had varied answers. So, some said that, if you want to know what is the right time for any action, you must draw up a plan. So you draw up a table, you write over there the days, months, and years, and accordingly you plan it out and follow it strictly. Then only one will become successful. Others declared that it was impossible to decide beforehand the right time for every action. So others said that no one cannot decide in advance what is the right time. So whatever happens at that particular time, you take an action accordingly. So that is what some felt. But that not letting oneself be absorbed in idle pastimes, one should always attend to all that was going on and then do that was most essential. So the ones who said, do take a decision at an appropriate time, you cannot plan up sometimes. But at the same time, they said, you should not waste time. Don't unnecessarily waste time in doing things that are not required in life. Similarly, they said, also do the things which are really essential, which are very important. Yet others said that it was impossible for one man to decide correctly the right time for every action, and that the king should instead have a council of wise people who would help him to fix the proper time for everything. So there was a third category of people. This third category said it is impossible for the king alone to draw up a plan and decide what is the right time because you never know what time is right. So he said instead of the king wasting his time in understanding anything, rather he appoint wise men, intelligent people, and they are the ones who would draw up a plan and fix the proper time and accordingly convey that to the king. So three different answers for one question was given. Do you think the king would have been happy? No, he himself got confused. Now which is the right answer? Let's go. Okay, see the set. Now look at the second paragraph. Let's mark the grammar out there, class. Mark the first line. Many learned people came to the court, but they all gave different answers. My question is, pick out the conjunction and state its kind. So over here the conjunction is but, and it's a coordinator. Okay, all right. Come a little lower down, you have over there the word declared. Give me the noun form of declared. Answer will be declaration. Same line, you have the word impossible. Give me the opposite or the antonymous for the word. So answer is possible. Decide, noun form will be decision, and adjective will be decisive. Come a little lower down in that paragraph. Sentences. Others said that it was impossible for one man to decide correctly. Again, it's identify the subordinate clause. I am only asking you to identify the subordinate clause. So you just speak out the subordinate clause. So see where if you see where your conjunction is that. So your subordinate clause is that it was impossible for one man to decide correctly is your subordinate clause. Do not give me the kind, do not give the main clause, because the question says pick out the subordinate clause. So stick to the question, please. Next one over there is wise. Give me the noun form of wise. Wisdom. Okay, now let's continue. Equally varied were the answers to the second question. Some said the king most needed were his counselors, others the priest, others the doctors, while some said the warriors were the most necessary. Remember what the king's second question was? The king's second question was who are the right people that he should listen to or whom he should take advice from. Now, here also the people who had come, they gave him different answers. Some said varied meaning different. Some said that he needed a council of ministers, wise people, those who would give him the proper answers. Others said, no, the people whom the king should take advice from are the priests because they are holy people, they know the scriptures very well, so they can guide the king as per morality, whether it is right or wrong. Still, the other category said doctors are the most important people because if one has to remain happy, one has to remain healthy. So, the health of the king and the health of its subjects will make the entire kingdom happy. But there were still others who said the best people whom the king should listen to are warriors. Warriors are people who are skilled in fighting. Okay, so he said those who are skilled fighters, those who are warriors, brave men, they are the ones the king should listen to because if the country is strong in its military warfare, then the country will always remain happy. Now, if you go to see class, each one is right in their own way. All these people are very important. But remember one thing, here the king wants only one set of answer, not different. So again, he is not very happy over here. In this paragraph, mark equally varied were the answers to the second question. Add a question tag. Your answer is equally varied were the answers to the second question. Want it, put a comma and want it. WEREN apostrophe T. Want it and a question mark. Okay. Let's continue class now with the next part of the paragraph. To the third question about what was the most important occupation, some replied that the most important thing in the world was science. Others said it was skill in warfare. And others again that it was religious worship. The king was convinced by none of these answers and gave the reward to none. So the final question of the king was, What is the most important thing that the king should do? So, again, this question also had many answers. Some of them told that the most important thing in the entire world is science. So, if you know science very well, then one is successful. Others said, no, no, it is the skill of warfare. That is, you everyone should be a brave, skilled warfare, brave soldier in the country. Still others said, no, we don't want warfare, we don't want science. What is the most important that the king should follow is worship, religious worship. Be a very spiritual person, make everyone spiritual in the kingdom, and everyone will be peaceful. Again, if you see, all of them were right in their own way. But the king was not convinced. The king was not happy, not satisfied, because he did not get a single answer. There were different answers for all the three questions. So finally, he decided he's not going to give a reward to any one of them. Not happy at all with them. Okay. In this paragraph class, you mark the king cancel convinced was over there. The king convinced the king sorry continue that the king was convinced by none of these answers, and my question is change the voice. So your answer will be none of these answers convinced the king. None of these answers convinced the king. So it's a passive voice sentence. I have changed it to active voice. Okay, all right, let's continue. So since the king was not happy at all, finally he decided, now where should I go? So this is the step he takes. He decided instead to go to a hermit who was widely renowned for his wisdom. The hermit lived in a small hut in a forest which he never left. He spoke only to common folk. So the king put on simple clothes and, approaching the hermit's cell, dismounted his horse and left his bodyguard behind. So finally, the king felt the best person to answer his all questions would be an hermit. A hermit, you can call him a sadhu or a sage, a person who has renounced worldly things. And usually, these people you find them either they are staying in the mountains all by themselves, or they stay in the forest regions. So he was going to meet a hermit who was said to be a very renowned person, renowned, very famous, famous for his wisdom, famous for his thoughts, famous for what he advised people for. Now, this hermit lived in a very small hut in a forest, and a very special thing about him was that he liked people who were very simple by heart. So that is why he always loved that common people came to visit him. Folk meaning common people. So therefore, the king went wearing only very simple clothes, did not want to show that he is a king, or rather, he went disguised as a commoner. And as he was about to approach the hut, he told his bodyguard that he should move away from there, taking his horse. Does this incident remind you of a ninth standard poem class? Remember, you did Tansen, and when Tansen, in that poem, when King Akbar was so influenced by Tansen singing, and he wanted to meet his teacher, he too did the same thing. Remember that? He too went disguised as a commoner to meet the singer. So, somewhere you can relate that poem of Tansen to this king here. Okay, so mark over here in this particular paragraph, he spoke only to common folk. Okay, rewrite this sentence in the interrogative form. So, your answer will be, didn't he speak only to common folk, and a question mark. Same line, you have marked that sentence there. The king put on simple clothes. Change it into negative. Okay. So negative means you must, this is a positive sentence or an affirmative sentence. You are changing it to negative. So negative, you must have no, not, or never. So your answer will be the king did not put on expensive clothes. Okay. Alright. Let us continue. When the king arrived, the hermit was digging the ground in front of his hut. He greeted the king but went on digging. The hermit was frail and weak, and each time he struck the ground with the spade and turned over a little earth, he breathed heavily. So the king went there, and as the king reached near the hermit's hut, he found that the hermit was busy. The hermit was busy digging the ground in front of his hut. And in a very respectful way, he greeted the king but went on digging. So, what does it tell you? See, it says the hermit greeted the king. That means somewhere the hermit had recognized that this man who had come in simple clothes was none other than the king of his kingdom. So, he was so respectful, he greeted the king but went on digging. Now, the king realized that the hermit was very frail and weak, very thin. And each time he kept on digging and he struck the ground with a spade, he was breathing very heavily. That shows that the hermit was very, very tired. The king went up to him and said, I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer three questions. How can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? Who are the people I most need? And to whom should I, therefore, pay most attention? And what affairs are the most important and need my first attention? So the king continued asking him the same questions that were going on in his mind, for which he had come to find the answers for. So he repeated the questions to the hermit. Meantime, if you know, the hermit is busy digging. So, whether did the hermit pay attention to his questions? What happened afterwards in this story? All this class, we will do it the next time I meet you. Okay? Now, mark the grammar in this part of the passage. First word is arrived over there. So, the noun form will be arrival, Arrival. Then you mark the sentence, the hermit was digging the ground in front of his hut. Change it into past, perfect, continuous tense or progressive tense. It's the same. Past, perfect, continuous tense. Your answer will be the hermit had been digging the ground in front of his hut. Come a little lower down, your sentence is, the king went up to him and said, I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer three questions. Only that much. Rewrite in the indirect speech or give the answer in the reported speech. Okay, so your answer will be the king went up to him, or you could say the king went up to the hermit, because this is a scene passage, so you know who the person is. The king went up to the hermit and said that he had come to him to answer three questions and a full stop. Please remember, you do not have to write the inverted commas. No writing inverted commas, otherwise you'll get it wrong. Okay, so with this class, this much part of the chapter I have finished. Please see that you go through. All right, and we will meet for the next session. So thank you, class, and God bless you. Have a good day, class.